Law-Alexis Landis. This is for Professor Catherine Reardon for GMC 154 Ethics. Today, the dilemma I'm going to discuss is the Arizona immigration law, which is also known as Senate Bill 1070 and House Bill 2162. I will be addressing the history and nature of this bill, the pros and cons of this bill, and the effects that illegal immigration has on our society and why I think that this bill is beneficial as a result of those effects. This bill was enacted in April of 2010 and is referred to as the Support Our Law Enforcement and Safe Neighborhoods Act. Essentially, this bill provides newer, more harsh state penalties for trespassing, harboring or transporting illegal immigrants, falsifying alien registration documents, fraudulently employing illegal immigrants, and human smuggling or trafficking. Legal immigrants from Mexico are also required to carry alien registration documentation on hand or face fines and even detention. This bill truly came about after a southern Arizona rancher, Robert Krentz Jr., was shot to death on his ranch on March 27, 2010. It's believed that Krentz was involved with human smuggling, so I guess it's probably not a huge shock that he was shot because when you involve yourself in risky situations, there are consequences. This episode of violence, however, sparked fear throughout the ranching community and also from the local law enforcement and politicians. There was an increased fear that racial tensions between the locals and illegal aliens would rise and ultimately escalate into extremely hostile and even violent situations. The bill was composed out of necessity to keep the peace and protect the interests and rights of those who are legally citizens of our nation. Several reasons to oppose this bill are that it encourages racial profiling, discrimination, and may even ignite racial violence. It will also discourage those of Hispanic descent from wanting to involve law enforcement in matters that need it for fear that they will be questioned, fined, or even detained for not having proper documentation on hand. Although there are statutes in place to protect from racial profiling, Anglos or African Americans are not required to carry documentation declaring that they are, in fact, natural-born or legal citizens of the United States. That leads us to reason that this is, in fact, a blatant form of discrimination and is not unlike when the Jews of Europe were forced to wear gold stars to distinguish themselves during the Holocaust. This bill has been challenged because others feel that it is unconstitutional and does not give those being charged with illegal immigration due process before being deported back to Mexico or South America, as the case may be. These individuals, however, are not even citizens of the United States, so I'm not sure that due process is truly applicable. That being said, I support this bill. I grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and have seen firsthand how illegal immigration affects society. One of my best friends had family members that were in the United States illegally. As much as I love her and her family, when the recession struck and my family lost jobs while her family maintained employment, it was incredibly frustrating. Although her family held jobs and worked as hard as everyone else, I didn't feel that it was necessary that they were still employed while my family wasn't, even though we paid taxes and they did not. My father and uncles were laid off, and we were forced to live very, very meagerly. My mom had to go back to work. My little brother had to go to daycare, which obviously we were struggling to afford anything at the time, so that was a huge burden while my dad looked for a job and I was still in school. Employers prefer to hire illegal immigrants for lower jobs because they work for little money, and the employers do not have to pay income taxes on their earnings because they get paid under the table. So obviously there's an appeal to not pay those taxes. So I think that something needs to happen to ensure that Americans are able to find jobs and not have them taken by these illegal immigrants simply because they'll work for less, even though they work in really, really unpleasant circumstances, which isn't healthy for them either. I'm a strong believer in legal immigration where the government can regulate how many aliens enter our nation, can collect tax revenue from these people, can educate the offspring of these individuals, and can ensure that they are held to the same laws as the citizens of our nation. I cannot, however, condone individuals stealing our precious jobs, cheating the IRS, and contributing to the already overpopulated community of unskilled laborers. Our economy is in sad shape as it is, and is in no way benefiting from this widespread problem. Although it is expensive to exhaust resources to enforce laws like the one in Arizona, in the long run it will pay for itself as the unemployment rate decreases while Americans are able to regain the jobs that are rightly theirs. I truly think that this issue pertains to complications within the utilitarian theory. Although the most utilitarian thing to do from an immigrant's perspective would be to allow them into our nation freely, from an American's perspective, this results in unemployment and inequity as far as taxation is concerned. So the utilitarian thing to do would be to maintain strong borders, because the most happiness and productivity will be obtained if we maintain our American lifestyle. Allowing illegal aliens to steal our livelihood and deplete from our already weak economy is like allowing a burglar into your home, telling them to take whatever they want and not calling the police. It's stupid, altruistic to a fault, and should not happen. That is why I support the Arizona immigration law and any similar laws in place.